Russ, welcome to Frames. Thank you so much, for accepting this invitation for this interview with me. Nice to see you. We published some of your images in the newest, edition of Frames Digital. Wonderful work, especially I love those quiet, kind of minimalistic, seascapes, landscapes. Yeah, we will talk about it right in a minute. But first, I wanna, first of all, where are you based?
I'm in Melbourne, Australia. Yeah,
Melbourne,
yeah.
Melbourne, Australia. Okay, so we are a few hours apart, right?
You're in
There,
you're still in Switzerland.
Switzerland, right? That's correct. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, you
So,
found your career there. You spent
yeah, my wife is Korean. I occasionally visit Korea, so from time to time. So also all over the place, kind of, right? Um, you kind of had a break from your photography for some years, as I understand. You were busy with editorial stuff, political satire, and so on. But then you rediscovered it, yeah. So yeah, tell us.
yeah. Look, in my 20s, I was a very keen photographer. I used to shoot slide film, basically. I worked in a photographic lab for 2 or 3 years doing hand printing. Because it was a chemical lab using an enlarger, etc. I did that for 2 or 3 years, and that was a fantastic grounding in photography because it teaches you absolutely about exposure, I suppose. And it was a great job in some ways because I got to because I was the only person doing the hand printing in the lab. I got to do really high quality prints for great photographers, and also really awful mistakes, which I had to recover. So that was quite a really good grounding in photography, I guess. Um, I then worked in the studio for a couple of years, doing very much production line portraiture, and I got utterly burnt out with it and thought I'd never touch a camera again. And I guess in the last 3 or 4 years, I've rediscovered photography. But before that, well, when I ended my work in photography before, I became a book editor, and I worked in the book industry, and that's really where I've been for most of my life, really.
Yeah.
It's plan. Yeah.
Was there a particular moment, which kind of rekindled this passion, or it was kind of sitting on a back burner, and then you knew one day you would be coming back to it?
Yeah, I think so. It was always there. Yeah, I mean, I've always had a camera, but it was never serious. I was a weekender. I'd go out and see a nice sunset and shoot the sunset. That sort of stuff. So it's certainly not serious. And the seriousness, I guess, I've only discovered it in the last couple of years, and that's through a couple of friends. I joined a group called Image Chasers in Melbourne, which was started by a friend called Mike Reed, and he encouraged me, I suppose, and his encouragement got me back into it, I suppose. And
Yeah.
I know it's very important to me. I treat it very seriously. Mm.
Yeah. And this moment when you restarted it, this, photography passion, let's say, was it the same kind of photography you were enjoying before, or you discovered something new?
Look, to be honest, I was totally bored with the kind of photography I was doing before because I would just be, it would be weekend photography, basic landscapes. They would look pretty nice. They were technically proficient, but incredibly conventional and incredibly boring. Uh, and I suppose the big change was I was encouraged to start using Lightroom. I mean, Lightroom in some way, I mean, this sounds ridiculous. People have been using Lightroom for 20 years, but I've only just discovered it. And I discovered that I guess I was always in the habit of shooting slides, transparencies. And when you shoot transparencies, what you shoot is what you get. There's no possibility to really manipulate them. So I suppose when I finally discovered Lightroom, it was a liberation. It was a kind of a revolution in my photography. So the very ordinary stuff that I was shooting, I could transform in some ways, and that was the thing.
Okay. So it's interesting. It's like approaching it from this other end of the spectrum. So the editing process kind of, reignited this.
Oh, it absolutely did. Yeah, I mean, I've always loved to go out and take the image, but you come home with. I used to come home with very ordinary things. I didn't really want to play with them. I now. I love the editing. You can see my photographs are quite abstract and they're quite
Yeah.
off the wall in some ways. And
But today, when I look at your, today's images, I see much effort in there, also in terms of, you are choosing specific locations, that's for sure. You are looking for those quiet locations, waters, sky, those juxtapositions of those, earth elements. Also some, uh, yeah, city kind of abstracts, very quiet as well, and so on. So was this something you needed after those years of, crazy political humor, or to balance things out?
look, the crazy political humorous, I'm still involved in that. But no, I don't know what it was. Look, one of the one of the things that happened to me in the last sort of 10 years is that I developed chronic fatigue syndrome. So my ability to really go out and do a lot of serious walking around was quite is restricted. So there are certain places I could go to, which are these beautiful seascapes. I could get to them easily in the car, and I started photographing the same spot, regularly. And I guess first I was bored with it, and then I saw the possibility of what you could actually do with that same scene, repeated. Um, Fortunately, I'm sort of over that, and I can get out and about a bit more now and find slightly more interesting scenarios.
But those meeting points kind of between, sea, sky, light, what fascinates you so much? Because you keep producing this kind of beautiful images. So what is it like? Why do you think it's the subject matter for you?
Look, this is quite interesting. When I wrote, I had to think about this when I wrote the introduction to for the frames digital, uh, and as a young kid, I was brought up in a quite a fundamentalist church, and we used to read the Bible very regularly. I was always utterly fascinated by Genesis and the the story of creation, and it always, I mean, poetically, I thought it was extraordinary, that first sort of chapter. I'm not religious at all, even vaguely religious, but that always had a bigger impact on me. And I think when I see, looking back at the images I've taken in recent times, they're about, this kind of, it's kind of a world before creation, before it gets divided up into categories like,
Mhm.
well, you've got sea and sky, of course, and land, but they're not rigid categories, And I suppose I always saw that, um, as a moment before the world gets created, before it gets divided up into all the categories we've come to know. I suppose there's an philosophical sort of thing, which I've
No, yeah.
retrospectively in my in
Yeah, wonderful. It's always fascinating. We found it. It's there. It's down there in you, So we often, uh, exactly, retrospectively, we often realize when you start thinking about it, where it's coming from. Why am I drawn to certain kinds of, scenes and not to the others? Uh, Tell us a little bit about your process. Many of those images, I guess, are maybe long exposures.
m
Yeah. How is your photographic outing? How does it look like? Is it a tripod? Is it much equipment, or is it minimalistic?
I always hated tripods, I like to just walk around and just go for a walk and take some photos, but these days I'm much more prepared, and, I usually go out with 2 cameras actually, so I go out with the camera on a tripod, and they're very often 2-minute exposures. So while I'm doing those exposures, I'm often got the other camera and just, shooting whatever takes my fancy. But yeah, the long exposures, between, sort of 15 seconds and 2 minutes really,
Okay.
very actually long.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I don't know what I don't know what I look for actually, but I'm always drawn to those binary kind of images, that sort bleed into each other.
Yeah, and the same kind of applies to your, let's say, architectural kind of mundane spots. You're looking for those walls, looking for those patterns. Is there a parallel here in some way between those two?
Yeah, I think there is. I mean, those wall images are. I think that they go right back to the beginning when I sort of discovered the possibilities of what I could do with my photography. That wall is just it's just on my street. I walk past it every day, and the light is different on it every day. And I just I look for patterns, because when a concrete wall is rendered, it creates these very often circular patterns, and they very often just created seascapes in my mind when I photograph them. So yeah, and I notice very often the compositions that I seek are very similar. I have to break out of that habit, but
Yeah. I have to laugh a little bit because it was maybe 15 years ago or something. I had absolutely, it was a year or half a year where what I call it was a my wall period. I was just scanning every possible wall I was passing by, and there is so much to discover. Like you say, you can find landscape patterns, seascapes, scenes, humans on those walls.
the ones that really got me was almost the kind of Chinese landscapes, like chalk landscapes, and I was seeing apocalyptic scenes. I was seeing,
Absolutely.
waves, and go outside. It's all here.
No, wonderful. So, those walls. Let's take them as an example. Is it something? Do you remember? Did you have it in you when you are, a teenager, a kid already? Like were you observing stuff around you, kind of in detail, or it came later?
I think it came later. Yeah, I don't think I was particularly observant, and I think my early period in photography, in my teens and early 20s, I think I was much more drawn to the romance of photography rather than the reality of it. And I met the reality of it in a photographic studio doing line portraits.
Yeah.
That killed my interest.
Yeah. Wonderful. Listen, I selected 4 kind of random photographs of different kind from your portfolio. So I will share the screen. Just give me a minute. I will cut it out later. And let's look at those 4 images and, just share a few words about each of them, whatever you remember about the scene situation.
Oh,
Um, so let's do it. Let's see if it works. Do you remember the moment,
I
the
remember
location?
very well. It was the last image I took. It was only a couple of weeks ago, actually. I went to out to the pier. The sky was incredibly disappointing. It was a flat grey sky. There was really nothing much going on at all. Um, and I thought, well, photographing nothing is my thing. So let's have a go. And of course, it's a duotone. So the sky was a really sort of a steely grey. And I think that was about a 30-second exposure, something like that. And I've toned it, and it's actually one of my favorite images, I have to say, even though this so on in
Man,
it.
I love it. I mean, minimalistic kind of have this Rothko painting kind of vibe,
Yeah.
It's just simple, and it's interest. What I kind of love about this image is that you place the horizon line in the middle, right?
Yeah.
Not any kind of 1/3 or whatever, and it works. For me, it just works. It's a beautiful abstract. Um, at the same time, it's a real scene, right?
Yeah, yeah, it is a real thing. And actually, that is also panned on a tripod, but not very much. It's a very small angle, a very slow pan. I guess that that I tried the ICM photography. I've tried that quite often, and I've been quite disappointed in what I've done with that, because you get lots of nice pastel colors, but they just it's quite difficult to do well. I mean, somebody like Kate Barclay does it beautifully, but I haven't been able to do it. So now I'm doing ICM, but on a tripod.
Yeah, no, wonderful. You found your way, right? That's what's so beautiful about it. Okay, let's have a look at the next image. It's something a bit different.
Yeah. This is one that I did a while ago, and I shot it, and I thought this is pretty boring, actually, and I put it aside. And in recent times, I've been starting to to use duotone instead of black and white because I think it gives you a little bit more. I don't know. You can get real bite in a photograph in a way, and so that was one of my early experiments in duotoning. I think it's pretty nice actually. I quite like it.
So just to those of our viewers maybe. So duotone, you are duotoning it in digitally after the from a raw file, right?
I shoot everything in color, then convert to black and white, and then you add the tones. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. When you look at a scene like this, I love the fact, of course, how the clouds are positioned, right? Or this is a beautiful composition. So, do you remember? Did you work this scene? For a longer time, you are looking for the angle, positioning the clouds, in the frame.
Well, I positioned the clouds in the frame, but it was basically a snapshot. I didn't spend a lot of time composing it because the composition. I looked at it and I thought, that's a composition I'd like to take. So I didn't spend a lot of time on it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, then your instincts are just spot on. I mean, it's just beautiful.
An instinctive shot, but there's an awful lot of instinctive shots that are really terrible. So
Well, I always say in the very end, one thing is shooting, other thing is choosing the images you decide to present to the public. It's part of a process, yeah, right? So
that's right.
great choice here.
Mm.
Okay, let's get to the third one. This will be now different, I guess.
Oh, that's my neighbor's fence, actually.
Oh, right, okay. Wow, amazing. Tell us a little bit, when did you notice it? Have you been spotting it for a while and approaching it?
I've taken a few sort of these geometric images of fences, but not recently. But the neighbor just had a new fence put in. It's aluminium fence, and just the way the light hit it and the shadows, I just thought that's fantastic. So I did. Look, it wasn't I didn't think about it for a long time. I sort of just thought that's great. I'll shoot it. It wasn't. There was no extended period of thought beforehand. Put it that way. I just thought and thought that's wonderful.
So this
Extreme sort of contrast. Yeah.
this kind of moments, how does it work for you? Like, you go around with your life, and is your brain, your eyes kind of always, even subconsciously scanning the surroundings, and then suddenly you notice something like this and you have your camera with you at all times, or how does it work?
Well, I usually have my camera with me, but I mean, most days I take my dog out for a walk. Twice a day, we walk around the neighborhood, and there always seems to be new stuff to look at and observe. And that's a bit of a mystery, really, because well, I guess that's the art of photography is observing things afresh, isn't it? Trying to see things new rather than.
No, absolutely. I love this kind of approach. And of course, you have the camera with you, which is amazing. Oftentimes we have our phones. It's already great. We can also capture some images, but of course, with your camera, knowing the equipment, knowing the exact lens, yeah, you can really craft those images.
There's a pleasure in there's a physical pleasure in having a camera, I find as well. I like the physicality of the camera, having it in my hand and using it. I don't know. A phone wouldn't quite excite me so much.
I'm on the same page. Having said that, we see some amazing phone photography as well these days. Yeah. So yeah. Okay. The last image, again, different style, different kind of photograph.
Oh, yeah.
I love this one. Tell us about the choices here. Different duotoning, some grain, format.
This is one I really wasn't sure of. It was also I went for a walk on the cliffs on the Mornington Peninsula. We have some amazing trees, very spooky, kind of strange trees all along the peninsula, very skeletal trees. This was just it really was a I don't know. I just thought it wasn't something I thought about very seriously. It didn't seem very promising. I just thought I was probably on my way home. I just took the shot. There's something about it, obviously, that hit me. But it was when I got home and I started to play with it. And I think it was one of the very first times that I'd tried to duotone a black and white image. And I'm always reluctant to use too much grain because I can't seem to make it work right in the way that somebody like Adrian Villa or Mike Kenner. I mean, they use grain beautifully. I've never been able to sort of get that effect. So it was one of the first that I tried to use a lot of grain and the duotoning. And I'm still not sure whether I don't know what I think about it actually. It's
Yeah, I know what I think about it. I absolutely love this image. No, I think the combination of this kind of tonality and grain here looks absolutely beautiful. It gives this timeless feeling. It's like a sketch mixture between painting, sketch, photographs, somewhere in there.
yeah, yeah.
Absolute. No,
Right.
it's interesting. So we looked at a couple of images, and you often say when I ask about why, what did you see there, why, what, you often say I actually don't know, right? And I actually love the answer because it means it's so instinctive and so like natural in you. The what you notice. But do you think it's how important or not important it actually is for us photographers to know why we react to some scenes?
Mm.
What do you-
I really don't know about that. Look, I feel that even though I've sort of been around cameras for a good portion of my life, I feel that I've only just started now. And every time I go out, it feels like a bit of an adventure in perception, if you like. That's the way I sort of feel about it. And so I'm out looking for things, but I'm not pre-visualizing necessarily. It's just something strikes me as, oh, there's something there. Let's see what we can do with it. Yeah.
this moment when you exactly notice something like this tree or that fence of your neighbors, do you remember the feeling inside? It's like excitement. Is it something like
Yeah.
absolutely I have to take out my camera and I have to photograph it?
Oh, that the fence definitely was. Because it was just that particular time of day. The sun was just right, and it's Australia midday sun. You get really hard black shadows, and which is fantastic. I mean, people say don't go out in the midday sun to take photos, but if you
Oh
to do
no, absolutely. It's my almost my favorite time of the day, I tell you.
Australia.
Exactly. Uh, yeah, wonderful, Russ. Listen, what's on the horizon? What's in the future? Do you just let it, be, let it go, or you have any kind of, you know, visions, dreams, I don't know, plans when it comes to your photography?
I think I obviously have this is just something I've thought about in the last 3 or 4 weeks. I'm trying to put together a sequence or a series called Pantalassa. Now, it's part of the Earth's geological history. There was formerly a supercontinent, Pangaea, and the single ocean was Pantalassa. And then, of course, you got continental drift, the Earth plates separate, and you got the continents. But that original period was sort of land and sea. So I guess that's given me an idea to hang all these this series on. So I'm going to call it Pantalassa. It's also an album by Miles Davis, which I love. So
I was about to ask you about it actually. Miles Davis is many LP records on my shelves, by the way.
oh yeah.
Yeah. So no, wonderful. So there is plans, there is some goals. I think it's also important that we have them. Wonderful. Russ, well, thank you so much, and thank you for all your contributions. To the frames community. It's
Hey, yeah, listen, I just need to say, Thomas, how influential Frames has been for me. I mean, I discovered it a couple of years ago, and it certainly opened me up to thinking much more about photography.
Yeah.
So it's a very influential.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We definitely have some eye-opening and discussions in the group, right? So uh, maybe you could do some satire on the on photography. Maybe this is a book for the future, right? There will be something.
Yeah, that
Okay, yeah. Well, great. Thank you so much, Russ, for today. Thank you for taking time. Yeah, we stay in touch.
you're
Thank you.
indeed. Thank you very much for the conversation.